Okay, so the final piece to our review is to solve some systems, right? Solving systems. There were two ways we looked at solving systems. The first was by graphing. So we're going to take the same concepts we just saw before, right? So there's start at -4, we got a slope of 5. And remember, when we're going to solve by graphing, you have to draw the line very, very carefully. I don't know why this doesn't want to draw the line where I'm drawing it. And then our second line, we're going to start at -1, go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1. And so the looks of this, looks like these two lines are never going to actually intersect. And if you look carefully, if you notice, the slope of both lines was 5. And we spent some time talking about this, right? The slope of each line is 5. Those two lines are parallel. They're never going to intersect. So there is no solution for that particular set of systems. All right. Number 27 is going to give us a better look at it. So the first one, 1, and again, keep in mind that's -1 over 1 is the slope. So we can kind of go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, draw quite a few points, and then we'll go ahead and connect those. And then the second line is starting at -2. We're going to go down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. And the solution to this system is going to be where those two intersect. It's very important that you're very, very careful drawing these. And that point of intersection is 4, -3. So that's the actual solution to that system by graphing. The other way we looked at it was by elimination. And remember, we want to look for the quote-unquote matching variable. Here you can see the y's have the same number in front. They both have a 7 in front, so that's what we're going to work with. If it's the same sign, remember that means we're going to use subtraction. And by default, if it's a different sign, to use addition. So since this is -7 and +7, we're going to add these together. So -x plus -6x is -7x. These get eliminated, and that equals 28 plus 21 would be 49. Divide both sides to solve for x, and we end up with x equals -7. Remember, now we're going to go and take this and plug it back in. Negative x, so it's -7 minus 7, y equals 28. So negative would be 7 minus 7y equals 28. To move this 7 over, we have to subtract 7 from both sides. So we're left with -7y, right? Keep in mind, you got a negative you got to bring down. Equals 21. Divide both sides by -7. And so y equals -3. And so my final solution, put it as a point, x first, -7, -3. All right, number 29. You can see the x's are the quote-unquote matching simply because they have the same number, the same coefficient. However, it is literally the same. It's -2 and -2. Right? You can see they're both -2s, so since it's the same sign, we will go ahead and subtract these two. So 7 minus -4 turns into 11, and then 7 minus 18 is -11. Divide both sides by 11, means y equals -1. And go ahead and plug it back in. -2x plus 7 times -1 equals 7. So -2x minus 7 equals 7. Solve this. Add 7 to both sides. So we're left with -2x equals 14. Divide by -2. And x equals -7. So go ahead and put this as a point. X first. -7, -1 is my solution. A few more examples here. All right. So my quote-unquote matching terms, right? You see with the y, they both have +5 and +5. So again, not only is it the same coefficient, it's the same sign, which means I need to go and subtract these two. Those will be gone. So -5 minus -9 is 4x. And then 5 minus 9 is negative 4. Divide both sides by 4 here. X equals negative 1. Let's just make sure we're really careful, guys, with our negatives. Plug negative 1 back in for x. I'm just picking the first one every time. So negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. Here we'll subtract 5 from both sides, which leaves me with 5y equals 0. That's not a bad thing. If we divide both sides by 5, we realize y equals 0, right? The only time we run into a lot of trouble is when everything disappears. Here, it was just that number on the right side. So my final solution would be negative 1, 0. And then one kind of difficult concept here, the matching term here is, again, the x, right? And we need to understand, I think you guys do, that this is actually 1 sitting in front of that. So there's your matching term. Turns out the sign, though, is different. So different signs means we're going to add those two things together. So the x's will be eliminated. Negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5y. And 18 plus negative 3 is, 15. Divide both sides by negative 5. So y equals negative 3. Plug it in. X minus 7 times negative 3 equals 18. Well, this is negative 7 times negative 3, which turns out to be positive 21. Subtract 21 from both sides, and x equals negative 3. And put your point in. Negative 3 is the solution. And then 32 and 33, these might be really good to know how to do just in case you're moving on out of essentials, or could potentially come pretty helpful on the test. We currently don't have a quote-unquote matching set of variables, right? The first x has a 1, the second one has a 2. That doesn't match. Then we have a 3 and a 6. Those don't match. So this is where we spend a day looking at this. We can actually multiply to get them to match up. So I'm going to multiply the top by 2. And what that means is we got negative 2x minus 6y equals negative 56. Then we go negative 2x plus 6y equals 28. So I'm not touching the bottom, right? Remember, we just multiply through one row. Here, all of a sudden, we got a couple things matching. You can really pick. I'll just go with the x's since they're first. And since the x's have the same sign, I will subtract. So negative 6 minus 6 is actually negative 12y. And then negative 56 minus that 28 is negative 84. And when we divide both sides by negative 12, y equals 7. Now just plug that y equals 7 back into one of these. I'll do the negative x minus 3 times 7 equals negative 28. I'll go to the very first one. So negative x minus 21 equals negative 28. Add 21 to both sides, which means negative x equals negative 7, which means positive x equals positive 7. So my final solution here is the 0.77. Again, 33, we don't have anything matching up, so we need to multiply one of these. This might give you a better feel for it as well. There's nothing I can really multiply 4 by to get it to 10. However, if you look at the 9 and the 18, I can multiply 9 times 2 and get 18. So here we go again. We'll multiply the top row by 2. So negative 10 times 2 is negative 20x. 9 times 2, there's the 18y. And then 29 times 2 is 58. And then on the bottom, you have negative 4x. I'm not touching the bottom row. All right, so here we go. There's my new system. And now we have some matching variables, right? They both have plus 18y. Well, since it's the same sign, that means we're going to subtract these two. So negative 20 minus negative 4 is negative 16x. 58 minus 26 is 32. And when I divide both sides by negative 16, 32, sorry. I divide both sides by negative 16, I get x equals negative 2. plug that negative 2 back in, and I'm again just going to go to the very first equation. 10x plus 9y equals 29. So negative 10 times negative 2 is 20. To move this 20 over, I need to subtract. So that leaves me with 9y equals 9, which means y equals 1. Divide both sides by 9. And so my final point here is negative 2, 1.